They say a divorce is a tragedy. For me, the judge's gavel this morning was a starting pistol. I sit in a pitch-black security room, rolling a glass of bourbon in my hand. Through the glowing monitors, I watch my ex-mother-in-law welcome 50 elite guests to a five-star rooftop party. They are raising champagne to celebrate my ruin. They have absolutely no idea I control the screens, the speakers, and the script of their final act. Hello to the amazing audience of Violet Revenge Stories. Sadly, YouTube has completely demonetized our channel, leaving us without the budget to keep the lights on and pay our hard-working team. If you enjoyed today's story, please consider supporting us with just $1 by scanning the QR code on your screen or clicking the donation link in the description or comments, so our staff can pay their bills and continue creating these stories for you. My name is Harper Baker. As I was saying, I sit alone in the pitch-black security control room of the city's most expensive high-rise, rolling a heavy crystal glass of bourbon in my hand. The only light in the room comes from the bank of glowing monitors on the wall in front of me. Through the high-definition lenses, I watch 50 of the wealthiest, most powerful people in Seattle step out of the private elevators. They are entering the lavish rooftop ballroom. My ex-mother-in-law, Eleanor, rented the entire floor. She spared absolutely no expense. There are ice sculptures, towers of imported seafood, and waiters walking around with trays of $1,000 champagne. Just 9 hours ago, at 10 o'clock this morning, a family court judge officially finalized my divorce from my husband, Julian. I walked out of that courtroom with a grand total of $0 I left with empty hands, completely shut out by an aggressive, ironclad prenuptial agreement Eleanor forced me to sign 5 years ago. I did not fight it. I did not shed a single tear. I just signed my name on the dotted line. Eleanor thought I was defeated. She thought she had finally scraped the mud off the soles of her designer shoes. She was so spectacularly wrong. Eleanor thinks I am just a low-level corporate drone who pushes paper all day. She has absolutely no idea what my actual title is at Vanguard Zenith Nexus. My firm does not just handle simple public relations. We are the underground crisis management syndicate for the global elite. When a billionaire politician gets caught in a hotel room with a suitcase full of illicit substances, my team makes the police report vanish. When a tech executive makes a catastrophic mistake, we rewrite the entire internet. I erase scandals. I orchestrate digital miracles. I build and destroy reputations for a living. So, overriding a luxury hotel's internal security network, taking full control of their audiovisual system, and locking down their mainframe was barely a 5-minute warm-up exercise for me. I currently own every camera, every speaker, every projector, and every electronic door lock in that ballroom. Yesterday afternoon, a courier delivered a thick cream-colored envelope to my office reception desk. Inside was a heavy gold-plated invitation. Eleanor sent it personally. It was an invitation to a freedom gala. She gathered the city's most influential people to celebrate the liberation of her precious son from the gold-digging commoner. It was her ultimate victory lap, a final, glittering insult delivered right to my desk to remind me of my place. I kept the invitation. I even traced my fingers over the expensive embossed lettering. It was the exact motivation I needed to finalize my masterpiece. I leaned forward in my leather chair, resting my elbows on the control deck. My eyes lock onto monitor number 4. The main entrance. Julian has just arrived. He is wearing a custom tuxedo that his mother definitely paid for, but he is not walking in alone. He is linking arms with Chloe. Chloe is the wife of Marcus. Marcus is Julian's older brother, the man who actually runs the entire family empire while Julian plays golf and pretends to be important. Chloe leans in close to Julian as they wait for a waiter to pass. The security camera captures the exact moment their eyes meet. It is not the warm look of family members. It is a filthy, secret, predatory glance. It is the look of two people sharing a disgusting, rotting secret under the bright, blinding lights of a polite society. They think no one is watching. They think they are completely invincible. The sight of it makes my stomach turn violently, but my pulse remains perfectly, coldly steady. I take another slow sip of my bourbon. The burn in my throat is incredibly satisfying. I look at Eleanor on the center screen, laughing loudly and clinking her champagne flute with a city councilman. "You wanted a stage of 50 people to humiliate me," I whisper to myself in the empty room. "That is perfectly fine. Eleanor, I will give you a play that all of Seattle will have to buy tickets to see." For 5 agonizing years, my marriage was a masterclass in psychological suffocation. To truly comprehend the sickening, glittering spectacle unfolding on my security monitors right now, you have to understand the deeply toxic ecosystem of the family I married into. In the eyes of Eleanor, her youngest son was an infallible deity walking among flawed mortals. Julian was the ultimate golden boy. It simply did not matter to her that he had failed the state bar exam 3 separate times, or that he spent his Tuesday afternoons drinking heavily at the country club while pretending to network for the family firm. Eleanor aggressively, almost pathologically, ignored his utter lack of competence and his endless string of reckless financial decisions. Instead of holding her own flesh and blood accountable, she projected all her venom and disappointment onto me. My crime was entirely unforgivable in her elite, old money circle. I was self-made. I paid my own tuition through a state university by working exhausting double shifts at a downtown diner. While they inherited trust funds and summer houses, I built a ruthless corporate career completely from the ground up. Eleanor never missed a single opportunity to remind me of my working-class pedigree. At extravagant dinner parties, she would loudly and sweetly compliment my blue-collar resilience, before adding that it was just so incredibly brave of Julian to marry a girl who was used to scrubbing her own floors. I was entirely expected to swallow the daily humiliation, smile politely, and be desperately grateful for the tiny crumbs of their aristocratic prestige. The profound, agonizing irony of Eleanor's blind obsession with Julian was that he contributed absolutely nothing of value to the family's sprawling business empire. That crushing, solitary burden fell entirely on the broad shoulders of Marcus, the eldest son. Marcus was the unappreciated workhorse. He was the brilliant, quiet architect who kept their century-old legacy from crumbling into absolute bankruptcy. He worked 80-hour weeks, flying constantly across the country on red-eye flights, securing hostile corporate mergers, and aggressively managing the commercial real estate portfolio that directly funded his mother's lavish lifestyle. Yet, inside the cold walls of the family estate, Marcus was practically invisible. Eleanor treated her eldest son like a high-functioning piece of industrial machinery. He was nothing more than a reliable corporate automated teller machine, designed to print the millions of dollars that she and Julian so carelessly set on fire. There was zero maternal warmth reserved for Marcus, only a cold, rigid expectation that he would endlessly underwrite their delusions of grandeur. Then there was Chloe. If Marcus was the invisible engine of the family, his wife was the flashing neon billboard. Chloe was a self-proclaimed wellness and lifestyle influencer, a walking, talking monument to modern superficiality. Her entire existence was a meticulously curated social media feed of beige luxury aesthetics, exclusive spiritual retreats, and highly staged candid photographs. But her true, undeniable talent was emotional manipulation. She knew exactly how to play the vicious game of aristocratic survival. Chloe constantly showered Eleanor with extravagant, breathless affection. She would arrive at the estate unannounced with vintage designer silk scarves or custom-made diamond tennis bracelets, presenting them as humble tokens of her undying devotion to her beloved mother-in-law. Of course, every single penny spent on those lavish, affection-buying gifts came directly from the bank accounts of her exhausted husband. Marcus, Eleanor devoured the flattery. She proudly paraded Chloe around the country club as the absolute ideal daughter-in-law, the perfect high society woman who knew exactly how to cater to the matriarch. The glaring contrast was intentionally designed to isolate me, to make me feel like a temporary, unwanted guest in my own home. But the highly polished surface of their glamorous lives was quietly rotting from the inside out, and in my line of work, I am paid to notice the microscopic details. The timeline of my marriage began to fracture about 8 months ago. Julian suddenly started having urgent, unavoidable client dinners that kept him out in the city until 2 or 3 in the morning. He claimed he was finally taking real initiative at the corporate office. I might have actually believed his sudden burst of ambition if I had not noticed the strange, sickening digital synchronicity. Every single time Julian was held up at these mysterious late-night business meetings, Chloe's perfectly manicured internet presence would suddenly update. At exactly 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, she would post moody, black and white photographs of a half-empty crystal wine glass to her story, accompanied by poetic captions about feeling so desperately lonely and cold in a massive, empty mansion while her husband was away on business. The final, undeniable piece of the puzzle was the scent. Julian came home one rainy night smelling strongly of a very specific, incredibly rare blend of gardenia and white oud. It was a limited edition fragrance. I knew exactly what it was because I had stood in the foyer and watched Eleanor present that exact, custom-ordered bottle to Chloe for her 30th birthday just 2 weeks prior. I did not scream. I did not throw porcelain plates against the kitchen wall. I thought, perhaps incredibly naively, that the preservation of the family name was the one single thing Eleanor valued above her blind, obsessive love for Julian. I approached her privately the next afternoon in the estate's sunlit conservatory. I chose my words with extreme, calculated caution, suggesting gently that Julian was spending a highly concerning amount of time with his brother's wife, and that the vicious people in their social circle might start to whisper and ruin the family image. The reaction was instantly nuclear. Eleanor did not pause for a single second to consider the truth of my words. Her face twisted into a terrifying mask of pure, aristocratic rage. She slammed her antique teacup down onto the glass table so hard the porcelain visibly cracked. "You are a pathetic, paranoid creature," she hissed. Stepping so close to my face I could smell the bitter gin on her breath. "You are completely delusional. My son is a gentleman, and Chloe is family. You are nothing but a jealous, low-class interloper trying to poison the air in this house because you know deep down you will never truly belong in our world. If you ever dare to breathe a single word of this disgusting, fabricated fantasy again, if you ever threaten the pristine reputation of this family with your filthy lies, I will throw you out into the street with absolutely nothing." She demanded my silence. She demanded my absolute, unwavering submission to their twisted, protective reality. She wanted me to be a blind, compliant fool. That was the exact moment the obedient wife died forever, and the ruthless crisis manager took over the steering wheel. I needed absolute, undeniable proof. A senior crisis manager does not act on the lingering scent of a luxury perfume or the passive-aggressive digital footprints of a desperate influencer. I engineered a completely flawless trap. I told my husband I was flying to Chicago for a highly volatile corporate summit that would keep me away from home for 4 consecutive days. I packed my leather luggage, kissed his cheek with practiced affection, and drove straight to the international airport. But I never boarded a plane. I checked into a painfully bland, anonymous hotel near the industrial park and opened my laptop. Months prior, I had installed a microscopic, military-grade camera hidden deep inside the crown molding of our primary living room. It was originally positioned there solely to monitor the hidden floor safe where I stored classified corporate hard drives for my firm. Now, it was a lethal weapon pointed directly at my own marriage. At exactly 11 o'clock on the second night of my supposed absence, my secure phone vibrated with a silent motion detection alert. I opened the encrypted application. The live feed loaded instantly in crisp, horrifying high definition. There was Julian, and there was Chloe. They were not merely sharing a secret conversation in the dark. They were heavily entangled, frantically tearing at each other's clothes, and violently desecrating the expensive custom Italian leather sofa that I had painstakingly selected just 2 years prior. Watching your spouse commit the ultimate betrayal is supposed to completely shatter your reality. You are supposed to scream, vomit, or collapse onto the floor in a puddle of uncontrollable tears. But I did not shed a single tear. The second my optic nerves registered the visual data, the wounded wife was permanently excised from my psyche. The ruthless crisis director immediately took total control of the steering wheel. My heart rate actually slowed down to a calm, steady rhythm. I sat in that cheap hotel room, illuminated entirely by the cold blue light of my monitor, watching the destruction of my future with absolute clinical detachment. I immediately began downloading the raw video files. I ripped the data, encrypted it heavily, and duplicated it across 3 separate offshore servers. I created an unassailable digital vault that no expensive corporate lawyer could ever touch. Only a fool confronts a traitor with raw, unchecked emotion. You confront them with a guillotine. I desperately needed an ally on the inside of the family fortress. I sent a securely encrypted text message to Marcus, arranging a meeting at a grimy, dimly lit dive bar on the far southern outskirts of the city. It was the exact kind of place that served cheap draft beer in sticky glasses, miles away from any high-end establishment the elite class would ever dare to visit. I sat in a secluded corner booth, listening to the irritating hum of a broken neon sign. Marcus walked through the heavy wooden door precisely at 8 o'clock. He looked completely exhausted, his expensive tailored suit deeply wrinkled from yet another 14-hour day, keeping his family's sprawling business afloat. He slid into the cracked vinyl booth across from me. I did not offer any polite pleasantries. I simply slid an unlocked tablet across the scratched wooden table. I tapped the glass screen once. The video of his wife and his brother began to play. I braced myself for an explosion. I fully expected Marcus to flip the heavy table, to roar with primal anger, or to bury his face in his hands in agony. Instead, he just stared at the bright screen with dead, hollow eyes. He did not even blink. After 60 agonizing seconds, he slowly pushed the tablet back toward me. "I suspected it for over 6 months," Marcus said. His voice was terrifyingly calm, carrying the massive weight of 1,000 sleepless nights. "I hired a private investigator back in January, but before I could even gather the hard evidence to confront her, my own mother intervened." He took a slow, deliberate sip of the cheap whiskey the bartender had dropped off. "Eleanor found out about the investigator. She called me into her private study. She did not defend Chloe. She simply told me that an ugly public divorce would completely ruin the family's stock valuation and bring shame to our circle. Then, she quietly restricted my access to the primary trust fund and transferred the majority voting rights of the commercial real estate holding company directly to Julian. She stripped all my financial weapons just to protect her golden boy from the consequences of his own sickness." I looked directly into the eyes of a man who had been ruthlessly bled dry by his own bloodline. The profound betrayal we shared bound us together instantly in that dark room. We sat in that sticky booth for 3 uninterrupted hours and drafted a meticulous blueprint for absolute annihilation. We did not want a messy, screaming confrontation in a bright lawyer's office. We did not just want to expose a filthy affair. We wanted to systematically dismantle the entire architecture of Eleanor's power and leave Julian and Chloe standing in the burning rubble with absolutely nothing but the clothes on their backs. "If we strike right now, Eleanor will just use the massive family fortune to bury us both in endless litigation," I told him, tapping my manicured nail rhythmically against the table. "She needs to feel completely invincible. We have to make her drop her guard entirely. I am going to give them exactly what they want." Marcus nodded slowly, a dark, incredibly dangerous smile finally creeping across his tired face. We shook hands in the shadows, 2 apex predators finalizing a hunt. The very next morning, I began the performance of a lifetime. I walked into the grand estate looking exhausted, broken, and thoroughly defeated. I played the role of the depressed, neglected wife flawlessly. I packed 2 small suitcases, left my diamond wedding ring on the cold marble kitchen counter, and unilaterally filed the divorce papers when Eleanor's vicious team of lawyers presented me with the aggressive prenuptial agreement, demanding I walk away with absolutely 0% of the marital assets. I did not argue. I did not hire a forensic accountant. I simply lowered my eyes, acted thoroughly intimidated, and signed away every single penny without a fight. It worked like an absolute charm. Eleanor's arrogance swelled to magnificent, blinding proportions. She thought she had brutally conquered me. She had absolutely no idea she was just obediently building the exact stage I needed for her own execution. While the legal machinery of our divorce ground on for 90 agonizing days, Eleanor launched a full-scale psychological war against me. She could not just let me leave the family quietly. She desperately needed a villain to justify her youngest son's sudden availability on the high society market, over expensive imported salmon salads at exclusive charity luncheons across Seattle. She began whispering the most vicious, carefully constructed lies to anyone who would listen. She told the bored wives of real estate tycoons and tech billionaires that I was a calculating gold digger who had maliciously trapped her innocent boy. She heavily implied that I was unfaithful, painting me as a promiscuous social climber who was constantly sneaking around with junior executives at my corporate firm. It was a masterclass in character assassination designed to completely sanitize Julian's reputation and make my departure look like a desperately overdue exorcism. I received dozens of sympathetic but utterly fake text messages from wealthy women in our social circle who were secretly thrilled by my sudden downfall. I let them talk. I did not send a single angry email in response. I did not hire a publicist to aggressively defend my honor. I just sat back and watched the poison spread, knowing exactly how I was going to make every single one of them choke on it. Then came the plot twist that truly showcased the sickening depths of their collective depravity. Right in the middle of the heated divorce proceedings, Chloe dropped a massive bomb on the entire family. She suddenly announced she was pregnant. She threw an intimate, overly photographed dinner party at the main estate to proudly declare that she and Marcus were finally expecting an heir. Her social media feeds immediately transformed into a nauseating digital shrine of maternal glowing, featuring perfectly lit photographs of tiny cashmere socks and lengthy, poetic captions about the divine miracle of motherhood. But this sudden pregnancy was absolutely not just for internet validation and social media likes. It was a highly calculated psychological weapon. Chloe was using the concept of an unborn child to permanently solidify her untouchable status as the matriarch in waiting. More importantly, she used it to aggressively pressure Julian, behind closed doors. She demanded that he finalize his divorce with me immediately. She wanted the path completely cleared, likely anticipating a future where she could somehow maneuver her way out of her marriage with Marcus and seamlessly transition to Julian, keeping her iron grip on the vast family fortune. The sheer audacity of her daily performance was enough to make a rational person completely lose their mind. Unfortunately for Chloe, she was playing a vicious game of chess against people who secretly owned the entire board. Marcus and I knew the timeline did not make any logical sense. Marcus had barely slept in the same zip code as his wife for the past 6 months, let alone the same bed. Utilizing Marcus's strict legal authority as her husband and my firm's highly questionable data retrieval methods, we completely bypassed the heavy digital security of her elite private medical clinic. The patient file we pulled up was a horrifying testament to Chloe's absolute sociopathy. She was not pregnant. She could never be pregnant. The confidential medical records clearly stated she had undergone a major surgical procedure exactly 36 months ago that left her completely, irreversibly infertile. The glossy ultrasound printout she had tearfully shown Eleanor at the dinner table was nothing but a high-resolution forgery. I easily tracked the serial number on the medical scan to a dark web marketplace that specializes in fake medical documents for desperate women trying to trap wealthy men. She had purchased a counterfeit miracle for exactly $500 in untraceable cryptocurrency. But the fake pregnancy was only the second most explosive secret hidden inside that massive house. While tracking the strange cryptocurrency transaction, my firm's algorithms flagged a massive, highly irregular cash flow anomaly within the family's primary holding company. I dove deep into the offshore accounting ledgers, bypassing firewall after firewall. What I found was a financial crime so incredibly massive it could send the arrogant matriarch to federal prison for a solid decade. Eleanor had not just restricted Marcus's access to his own trust fund, she had actively and maliciously embezzled from it, over the span of 24 months. Eleanor secretly siphoned over $7 million directly from Marcus's commercial investment accounts to aggressively pay off Julian's massive, underground gambling debts. Julian owed terrifying sums of money to some extremely dangerous people in Las Vegas. Eleanor stole her eldest son's hard-earned wealth just to keep her golden boy from getting his legs violently broken by debt collectors. And the most beautiful, devastating part of this entire discovery was that Chloe knew everything. I found a hidden string of encrypted emails proving Chloe had accidentally discovered the massive embezzlement over 8 months ago. Instead of telling her devoted husband, she used the highly illegal information to ruthlessly blackmail her mother-in-law. Chloe forced Eleanor to fully fund her lavish influencer lifestyle, buy her absolute silence with vintage diamonds, and unquestioningly support her fake pregnancy. It was a perfect, disgusting circle of extortion, fraud, and utter moral bankruptcy. Every single puzzle piece snapped smoothly into place. The picture was completely finished, and it was grotesquely magnificent. Armed with this apocalyptic ammunition, my role was incredibly simple. I just had to remain utterly quiet and play the victim. When the final divorce decree was placed in front of me by their smug lawyers, outlining that I would receive absolutely nothing for my 5 years of service to their madhouse, I picked up the heavy gold pen. I looked Julian directly in his weak, cowardly eyes. I looked at Eleanor, who was smirking with a sickening sense of absolute triumph. I signed my name perfectly on the dotted line. My total silence and my swift surrender gave Eleanor the ultimate, intoxicating high of victory. She felt so incredibly powerful, so entirely untouchable, that she immediately booked the city's most expensive rooftop venue to publicly celebrate her glorious win. She enthusiastically laid the heavy concrete foundation for her own funeral, and I happily handed her the golden shovel. I shift my gaze back to the primary high-definition monitor, pulling my mind out of the ugly past and dropping it directly into the glittering present. The lavish ballroom is now at maximum capacity. 50 of the most influential figures in the city are mingling under the massive crystal chandeliers. I recognize the mayor of Seattle sipping a martini near the ice sculpture. I see 3 major corporate investors who fund Marcus's real estate ventures, and a dozen high-profile business partners laughing heartily. The air is thick with the smell of expensive cologne, roasted duck, and unadulterated arrogance. It is a breathtaking display of surface-level perfection, completely hollow on the inside. At the center of the room, Eleanor confidently strides up to the small, elevated stage. She picks up a silver spoon and sharply taps it against her champagne flute. The high, clear ringing sound instantly silences the 50 elite guests. The string quartet stops playing. All eyes turn to the matriarch. She adjusts her designer gown, beaming with a sickeningly triumphant glow. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Eleanor projects her voice loudly, ensuring every single corner of the massive room can hear her. "We are gathered to celebrate a beautiful new chapter for my family. For 5 long years, my youngest son has been weighed down by an unfortunate mistake. He was trapped by a manipulative, low-class woman who brought absolutely nothing to our legacy but stress and embarrassment. But this morning, the court finally corrected that terrible error." Eleanor raises her glass higher, her smile twisting into something truly venomous. "Tonight, we do not just celebrate freedom, we celebrate taking out the trash, to Julian, and to the untarnished future of our family." A chorus of polite, aristocratic laughter ripples through the wealthy crowd. They raise their glasses in unison, happily drinking to my manufactured demise. Right on cue, Julian lowers his head, masterfully playing the role of the deeply wounded but incredibly resilient male lead. He walks over to Marcus and pulls his older brother into a dramatic, highly visible embrace. Marcus stands perfectly still. He pats Julian on the back, but through the zoom lens of camera number 3. I can clearly see the expression on Marcus's face. He is flashing a cold, deadly half-smile, his eyes practically gleaming with murderous anticipation. Right beside them, Chloe leans her head against Julian's shoulder, delicately dabbing her completely dry eyes with a lace handkerchief. pretending to be overwhelmed with family solidarity. It is the absolute peak of their disgusting performance. It is the perfect time to drop the curtain. I set my empty bourbon glass down on the metal desk. I reach out and flip the heavy plastic safety cover off the master override panel on my control deck. I press a single, glowing red button. Inside the ballroom, the atmosphere instantly changes. A loud, heavy, metallic clack echoes violently across the massive space. Every single electronic magnetic lock on the double oak doors simultaneously engages, completely sealing the main exits. Before the confused guests can even process the sound of the locks, the emergency security protocol activates. Thick, reinforced steel storm shutters drop rapidly from the ceiling, violently sliding down over the spectacular floor-to-ceiling glass windows that overlook the Seattle skyline. The heavy steel slams into the floor with a terrifying, industrial thud. The beautiful panoramic view of the city is instantly replaced by an impenetrable wall of dark gray metal. There is absolutely no way out. The ballroom is now a high-altitude steel vault. A wave of nervous murmurs sweeps through the 50 guests. The mayor looks around wildly. Eleanor's triumphant smile falters, replaced by a look of deep irritation. She grabs the microphone tightly. "What on earth is going on?" Eleanor barks into the microphone, her voice echoing sharply. "Manager, get out here and fix these shutters immediately. This is completely unacceptable." I reach out and slide the master lighting lever all the way down to 0. Every single light in the massive ballroom violently shuts off. The room is plunged into absolute, suffocating darkness. Several women in the crowd scream in genuine terror. The sound of shattering glass rings out as someone drops a champagne flute in the pitch black. Eleanor continues to shout angrily into the dead microphone, but her voice is quickly drowned out. I push the audio slider to maximum capacity. Instead of an apology from the hotel staff, a terrifying, thunderous classical symphony suddenly blasts from the high-fidelity surround sound speakers hidden in the walls. The heavy, dramatic string music vibrates the floorboards, building a terrifying sense of impending doom. I stand up from my leather chair, smooth out the lapels of my tailored, blood-red power suit, and walk out of the control room. I step quietly down the carpeted service hallway and slip through a hidden staff entrance near the stage. I stand in the absolute darkness, letting the heavy music reach its terrifying crescendo. Then, I hit the remote trigger in my pocket. A single, blindingly bright spotlight drops directly from the ceiling, cutting through the blackness and illuminating me perfectly. I stand tall in the center of the stage, my red suit burning like a fire against the dark backdrop. I hold a wireless microphone tightly in my right hand. The collective gasp from the 50 trapped guests is so sharp it sucks all the oxygen out of the room. The room falls completely, deathly silent beneath the booming symphony. They are absolutely paralyzed. The hunt has officially begun. I stand in the blinding beam of the single spotlight, staring directly into the terrified eyes of my former mother-in-law. I do not say a single word of greeting. I do not offer a villainous monologue. I simply raise my left hand, point the remote control at the massive LED wall covering the entire back of the stage, and press play. The screen explodes into brilliant, high-definition life. The 50 elite guests in the room brace themselves, expecting a touching photo montage of Julian's childhood. Instead, they are blasted with the crystal-clear security footage from my living room. There is Julian. There is Chloe. They are violently intertwined on the Italian leather sofa, their faces perfectly illuminated, their betrayal undeniable. A collective gasp of absolute horror rips through the dark ballroom, but the visual assault is only the beginning. The booming classical symphony abruptly cuts out, replaced by a crisp, digitally enhanced audio recording. It is Eleanor's voice, captured just 48 hours ago during a heated, private phone call with Chloe. The audio bounces off the walls, inescapable and deafening. "Just keep that fake pregnancy going." Eleanor's recorded voice snarls through the luxury speakers. "I will take Marcus's money for you and Julian to run far away. Just keep your mouth shut about the missing funds until the divorce is completely finalized." Chaos erupts. The pristine veneer of high society completely shatters. I watch the mayor of Seattle choke on his martini, spilling the clear liquid all over his silk tie. The massive corporate investors, the men holding the financial lifeblood of the family empire, do not look away in polite embarrassment. They immediately reach into their tailored jackets. Within 10 seconds, dozens of glowing smartphone screens illuminate the dark room. They are recording every single second. Some are actively live streaming the absolute destruction of a century-old dynasty directly to their massive social media followings. On the floor, Chloe loses her mind. Her carefully crafted influencer mask violently peels off. She screams frantically, her voice cracking as she wildly grabs at the sleeves of the wealthy women standing near her. "It is a lie!" Chloe shrieks, tears streaming down her face, ruining her expensive makeup. "I am carrying the heir to this family. I am carrying Marcus's baby." She doctored the video. A heavy, dark figure steps out from the crowd and walks directly into the spotlight. It is Marcus. He does not look angry. He looks completely, terrifyingly hollow. He stops right in front of his hysterical wife. He raises his hand and forcefully throws a thick, heavy medical dossier right at her chest. The papers scatter across the polished wooden floor. "Those are your medical records from the private clinic. Chloe," Marcus says, his voice booming through the silent room without even needing a microphone. "You had a major surgery 36 months ago. You are entirely medically incapable of having children. Your miracle baby is a $500 counterfeit ultrasound from the black market." Chloe stops screaming. Her jaw drops. She looks down at the scattered clinical proof of her sociopathy, completely paralyzed. Marcus steps over the papers and turns his attention to his mother. Eleanor is trembling violently, her face drained of all color, looking like a terrifying ghost in her designer gown. Marcus reaches inside his tailored jacket and pulls out a thick, white legal envelope. He shoves it directly into his mother's shaking hands. "That is a federal court summons," Marcus states, his voice dropping to a lethal, icy whisper that somehow carries across the entire room. "For massive financial fraud, severe embezzlement, and wire fraud. I handed over every single offshore ledger to the authorities this afternoon. You stole $7 million from my commercial trusts to pay off the gambling debts of your worthless favorite child. The federal agents are waiting for you at your estate right now." Hearing this, Julian completely breaks. The arrogant golden boy crumbles. He falls hard to his knees, crawling across the floor toward his older brother. He grabs Marcus by the legs, sobbing uncontrollably like a terrified child. "Marcus, please," Julian begs, his face slick with sweat and tears. "You have to help me. The men in Vegas. They will kill me if the money stops. You are my brother. You have to save me." Marcus looks down at the pathetic creature clinging to his trousers. He slowly, deliberately, kicks his leg free, stepping back as if Julian is covered in a deadly disease. "Every single corporate account is frozen," Marcus announces coldly, looking down at his brother. "You are completely cut off from the family trust, and you are officially fired from the company. Do not ever speak to me again." The sheer weight of the absolute destruction finally hits Eleanor. This is not a social embarrassment. This is total annihilation. Her wealth, her untouchable status, her golden boy, and her freedom are entirely gone. She lets out a horrible, breathless gasp. Her hands fly to her chest, her knees buckle, and she collapses onto the floor, genuinely grasping at her heart as a severe panic attack, or perhaps a real cardiac event, takes over. She looks up, desperately reaching a shaking hand toward her 50 elite friends, begging for help. Not a single person steps forward. The wealthy investors, the politicians, the socialites. They all take a uniform step backward, completely abandoning her in the dark. They look at her with pure disgust. Standing on the stage, I watch the magnificent inferno. I do not feel anger anymore. I do not feel sadness. I feel a profound, overwhelming sense of absolute peace. I look down at the microphone in my hand. I smile faintly. I place the microphone gently onto the edge of the stage. The heavy thud echoes through the room, signaling the official end of the performance. I turn my back on the screaming traitors. I walk calmly down the steps, moving straight through the parted crowd of shocked billionaires. No one dares to say a word to me. I walk out of the heavy double doors, leaving the suffocating heat of the destroyed empire behind me. I step into the elevator, press the button for the lobby, and finally walk out into the crisp, cold, beautifully free air of the Seattle night. It is the absolute perfect ending to a flawless hunt, a complete massacre, without spilling a single drop of blood. Thank you so much to our amazing audience for staying with me until the very end of this incredible journey. I would love to know where you are listening from, so please drop your city or country in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's story and felt the satisfaction of this revenge, please consider supporting our channel with just $1. You can help by scanning the donation QR code currently on your screen, or by clicking the donation link provided in the video description and pinned comment. Your incredible support is the only way we can pay our hardworking team, help them feed their families, and allow us to continue creating and bringing these powerful stories to you. Have a wonderful day.